There's this football image here, this sort of, I've just taken a creative kind of approach to it. But you have this image of this footballer who is just about to kick a ball, and all around him is brands around the lower tier, upper tier. There's a brand on the back of his shirt, and there's a lot going on. But if you look at what we then see within that, you'll see a bunch of effectively things that we look at. So obviously the time on screen is a critical one. When did it come in? When did it come out? How long was it on screen for? And that also goes hand in hand with size. Georgie can speak way more to the value of, is something better if it's larger and shorter time on screen, or longer and smaller on screen? And I guess it's what asset is it on that will determine that. But then another factor is the clarity, and that's really important. There is the human factor. When we talk about things like clarity, a well-informed human that has seen a brand a million times will be able to tell what that brand is from this amorphous blob of pixels, right? So when you have humans doing analysis like this, which a lot of companies do, because they don't have a system that analyzes every frame, and they just don't have a system like ours, you get this kind of false reporting of things that no average fan would ever know what it is. But someone who tags brands day in, day out will just tag this blob because they recognize that blob as a particular, brand X. So the AI can detect, because it's taught a particular brand, it looks at it like an uninformed human. It only sees what it can recognize, and it doesn't make any assumptions of kind of what it is. But where it does, we have this confidence score. So Georgie's team can then start to look at that and say, well, we want to rule out anything below this level of confidence because it's not really a proper detection. So, that can be adjusted and so on. So we have clarity. Also visibility. How much of a brand should be visible before we classify it as a good detection? Is it 10%, 50%? And again, that's a level that can be adjusted. And we typically go on at about 50% of that brand needs to be visible for it to be counted and detected. And then we have things like a prominence and share of voice. Where is it on screen? And how many other brands are on screen? And Georgie's team use this, what they call a clutter score, to then inform their discount based on, if there's lots of other brands on screen, then obviously that exposure has less value than if it's on screen, prominent, right in the middle, and it's the only thing visible. So yeah, those are the kind of important metrics that can now be brought out, especially when, as you said, you bring it down to the millisecond of detection. We're not assuming that because it was in frame 1 and it was in frame 31, because they're only doing 1 frame a second, that it's been there the whole time. We can tell that it was there on a fast moving sport, ice hockey. In 1 second, you can be from one end of the arena, the rink, to the other end of the rink. So we get right down to that millisecond of data, and it might have been in, then out, and then back in again. So you get this really accurate level of data of what was visible, combined with all this other stuff of clarity and prominence and share of voice and so on. So yeah, that's essentially what's possible these days once you start analyzing it with this level of detail and granularity.